Okay, we're continuing with the recording industry. You may join me on slide 24, where we get into a concept called amplification. Uh, but that was made possible by electromagnetic recording. Um, and and here because of the development of can't talk this morning, amplification techniques. Circuits were developed for the radio industry, and this required amps and microphones, something that they did not have up to that point. And by using the microphone, recordings of public performances became much easier. You have a microphone that can take in music. It's one thing or several microphones set along a line, and you have a big orchestra, and the sound that comes goes right into the microphone. And it's interesting how history happens, how certain people just happen along at the right time. Well, at that time we had a singer by the name of Bing Crosby, and if you haven't heard of him, write that down. Bing Crosby. He was called a crooner, Crooner. Um, and he was the first to use the microphone as an instrument. Try to understand what that is. He literally knew how to play the microphone. Um, just imagine that. He sang into the mic, not at the mic, and it became a more intimate, a warmer kind of acoustic singing. And he was the first to do this, and he became very famous, and he became very wealthy. And if you don't mind my saying, he was a very horrible human being. But sometimes horrible human beings become famous and wealthy, and he was one of them. Um, just off the cuff, he was horrible to his children. I believe two of his sons committed suicide. He was a horrible taskmaster, didn't want to leave anything to his children. He was, I don't know. You can read about him. It's an interesting read. He was paired with Bob Hope over the years. Hope and Crosby went on to do quite a few movies together, um, and they hated each other. You wouldn't know that. They were a pair. They made a lot of money off of each other. But both of them were disgusting people. And interestingly enough, they didn't like each other's kind of disgusting. Okay, moving along to something that you might be tested on. Who knows? I may ask you uh, who Bing Crosby was paired with through most of his career. That would be Bob Hope, and that they were not very nice human beings. Through the recording industry, though the recording industry vastly improved its sound system and radio record player combinations were promoted, audiences, now this is very important, audiences continued to identify radio as the home of live music and recorded music as canned sound or canned music. And I think that's because on the radio, they really were, people really were performing in the radio studio. And you heard that come into your home. And so you got a very good, um, not like live, but as close to live as it could sound at the time. Um, and then the recorded music sounded canned. It sounded artificial. And I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the Memorex tape commercials. There was a tape made by the brand Memorex, and they would have somebody like Ella Fitzgerald sing a very high note, and she would break glass because her note was so high, a glass in the studio would break. But then they would record her and they'd play the recording, and the recording would also break the glass. So the saying was, Is it Memorex or is it live? And that was the selling point of Memorex. It was a recording that sounded live. So live it would break a glass. So then we move on to slide 25, where we talk about magnetic tape, which is another advance in the industry. Magnetic recording, which is today used for video and audio tape, was first introduced around 1899 to 1900. And as you'll recall, as we've gone over in class many times, while one thing is being